Hello, everybody. I love it. How's it going? Were you excited to see a show today? Yes, I love it. Awesome. Well, my name's Adam. I'm part of the LA Opera Connects team, and it is a pleasure to welcome you to the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, which is the home of LA Opera, but we like to say that this is your opera house. Can I just get a quick show of hands? How many people have been here to this theater to see an opera before? Raise them high. Okay, cool. So we got a lot of new faces in the audience, which is amazing. So welcome to all of you who are here for the first time. It's always an honor for us to welcome people in for the first time. And welcome to all of you who are here returning. We love to have folks returning. So whether you're a first-timer or a returning member, we hope to see you here many, many more times. You know, we like to say that the arts in general is a place where everyone can feel welcomed, everyone should feel free to be themselves, to express themselves. There's a place for you in the arts, regardless of what you might want to do in your path in your life. And you're going to hear from some amazing people in just a couple moments here. So at LA Opera Connects, we do all kinds of programs for all ages out in the community and education, and this is just one of those ways that you can come see us. And we hope that you will come back many, many more times to either see a performance or a rehearsal here or see us out in the community for one of our other programs. But we're so excited for Verdi's Rigoletto tonight, and I'm going to introduce you to our esteemed panel, who will join me up here in just a moment. Our moderator for this evening is Ashley Faatoalia, who is an amazing tenor and an LA Opera performer and a Connects teaching artist. We have the renowned maestro James Conlon, who's the Richard Seaver music director here at LA Opera and who is conducting this production tonight. We have Andy Moss, who is our fight and intimacy director for the production, and we have Jessica Teaira Crawford, who is the assistant costume designer. So please give all of them a very warm round of applause as they make their way up to the stage. Thank you.
Well, good evening, and thank you, Adam. Thank you for that welcome, and thank you for joining us. As Adam said, I'm Ashley, and I am honored to be here with such an esteemed opera audience as yourself and our wonderful guest here. Want to get started right away, but I want to let you know just a little overview of how we're going to do this. We're going to discuss some things with our panelists and get a little information about their background and some of the things that brought them here. We're going to talk about the production, but we want to give you an opportunity to ask any questions that you might have as well. So at the end of this discussion, there will be a portion for you to ask a few questions if you have some information you'd like. So if you want to think about that as we go along, keep that in the back of your mind. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our guests again. And first, I want to start with Maestro Conlon here. I'll give you the first one out here. I have to say, and I was thinking about this, I was driving over here, this first part of this interview, this panel discussion, we can call our New York story, because I'm joined by three native New Yorkers here who are all happy to speak with us. But as an Angelino who is a native guy, I'm always it's always fun to work with people in other parts of the country, and you always run into the New Yorkers. They're quite the crowd, and so I want to turn it over to Maestro Conlon, who started. And he's heard me ask this question many times. He knows the song and dance. He knows that I like to hear the story of how he began in music. If you would, just a brief overview of how we got you here as the conductor for this piece and also our musical director here at LA Opera. What brought you to this place, Maestro?
Well, I'm fascinated to hear that you're interested that we're all New Yorkers. I guess it's like a foreign country. So
it is to me. I mean, as many times as I've visited.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. But New York is a great place, and whatever you heard about us, I don't think it's true. We're pretty good, don't you think? Pretty nice. And we heard a lot of weird things about Los Angeles when we were growing up 60 years ago. I never thought I would come to California. I never thought I would come to LA. When I came here to conduct, I never thought. I came here, took a job for 4 years. I never thought I would stay. Next year, when I'm going to finish my mandate as the music director after 20 years next season. 1 year from now, I never thought I would come to live here, come to love it. So I'm a big fan of Los Angeles. So I don't know about you guys, but that's what I have to say about Los Angeles. And New York is a great place, so I hope you'll all visit it. And it was a great place to grow up, especially if you had a growing interest in music, or frankly, whatever your passion or your chosen road was going to be. New York was great. The opportunities were endless at the time. I think they still probably would be together. I grew up at a good time.
How did you become a conductor? How did you get involved in music? What was the spark? What was the introduction for Maestro Conlon as a young guy?
Okay, well, I was 11 when I happened by chance to be taken to the opera, and within 4 months, my entire life had changed. I fell in love with the opera. I hope tonight that one of you, even if one of you falls in love with the opera and it lasts for your entire life, I would be very, very happy. The most important thing in life is to find your passion, because you find your passion and you can also make it your work. You'll never get tired. You will want to do it. I still want to do it at my age, and that's an advanced age now compared to everybody else, even those of you sitting up here with me. But I love it. I'm still in love with my work. I fell in love. It took me maybe 4 months. I asked for piano lessons, then I started violin lessons, then I wanted to start singing, then I actually got into the children's chorus of an opera. But by the time I was 13, somehow or other, I just said, you know what, I want to conduct. I want to do what that guy's doing. There was this guy down there who was waving his hands like that, and very exciting, and I thought that was great, and I could actually, from the stage as a child in the children's chorus, I could feel the difference between when there was an interesting, exciting conductor and when there wasn't, and that inspired me. So I decided when I was 13, and anybody here 13? Yeah. So, you know, you go home and tell your parents or somebody, hey, I'd like to do something like that. They look at you and they said, nice, well, do your schoolwork and all of that. I don't think my parents were not musicians. I just decided I wanted to do it. And I was determined and I just stuck to it. And fortunately, I guess I had a little talent. And so I, eventually went and studied music school, High School of Music and Art. That's Fame. And if you've seen Fame, the movie, okay, we weren't really like that. We were sort of like that. That's a big exaggeration. But that's where I went to high school. I went to Juilliard School. And by the time I graduated, I was conducting. And my career started almost immediately. And I hate to tell you, that was more than half a century ago, but I'm still doing it. So it's a great life. If you find what you want to do, which is the most important journey in life, find it, love it. It'll be lifelong.
Thank you, Maestro. And that's why I always ask. It's that moment of visiting a show and seeing a piece as a young person and being inspired, and then taking the intuition, the initiative to research and to get more involved in the programs and things like that, and that they were available. That's something that Maestro has been a champion of here at LA Opera and in our community, is making sure that young people like yourself can encounter opera. And so we're very excited to have you here this evening. Moving on down the line, Jessica, do you prefer Jessica or Jess? I'm sorry.
Jess is fine.
Jess, okay. Can you tell me how you started and how you arrived at being an assistant costumer for this one, but just in costume and costume design in general?
So my introduction into opera and theater came not necessarily later in life, but growing up, a fashion designer was like my what do you want to be when you grow up career goal. And one of my favorite movies as a child was The Wizard of Oz. So I had that movie on replay, had multiple copies of the VHS. And so I was always astonished by that, just the Emerald City and the costumes, and I would say, like, I want to do fashion, but I want to do the fun, weird stuff that you can't really do in fashion, or you can, but it's a lot harder to do that stuff. And so I would do it as a hobby. I would draw. I would just watch a lot of films and kind of just follow different costume designers throughout my life. And growing up, I actually pursued a career in biology until I went to college. And I did my first semester of college, absolutely did not enjoy anything that I was doing. And I was like, I could do it, but I was like, I wouldn't feel fulfilled with this. I couldn't see myself doing this for 10, 20 years and feeling like accomplished. And so I went to Syracuse University for undergrad, and they also had a theater program there. And one day I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna take a shot. And I went there with my sketches, met with the program director, and she was like, okay, great, just go to this class in 20 minutes and we'll work on getting your transfer papers done. And that's how I got my introduction into theater. I also was a big nerd and got into making costumes through cosplay. So this is before you can order cosplays on Amazon and stuff. You kind of had to learn on your own and figure it out. So I would watch YouTube videos. My Spanish teacher would sew, so I asked her after school if she can teach me how to sew. So we would just stay, and she would help me make my costumes. And so I kind of learned the nitty-gritty way, and then I went into the costume design program, and then I loved it. I feel like I finally found what I was meant to do, something that I'm happy doing, something I enjoy doing, and something that's followed me my whole life, but I was too fearful to kind of pursue that as someone that came from a low-income home and things like that. You know, pursuing the arts is not as encouraged because it's not always the lucrative thing to do, or there's that fear of what if you don't make it. But I think if you don't take that moment to invest in yourself, you'll never know if it'll happen. So I think, you know, now I've ended up here with all you lovely people, and working and designing in the city. I've met people like Jessica John, who's the costume designer for this piece, and has brought me on for the last 2 productions of it. And each time you do it, I learn something new, and I enjoy what I do more and more every day.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And again, I'm hearing sort of a theme here, taking the initiative and sort of being interested in something that sparked a little passion, and further researching and finding your own path there, and probably finding yourself in places that you didn't expect. To Andy, the question as well, how did you get into fight choreography, fight directing? How does one find themselves in that career? Was that something you'd planned? Was that something you were interested in as a young person?
Yeah, I've always been really angry and aggressive, and that helps.
That'll do it.
No, I started off as a performer. I went to school for musical theater, and I worked as a traveling artist for a while, for a couple years, until I found out that I just wasn't very good. And but I had been taking martial arts since I was a kid, along with playing sports while I was doing dance and musical theater. And when I got into university, I met a teacher who taught stage combat, and he said, "You should come take my class." And so I took it, and things went really well. And he asked me about my martial arts background, and I said that I had really enjoyed it, and I missed it while I was at university. And so he brought me on as his TA for the class. And so I taught it for as his assistant for the last 2 years I was at university. I went to the University at Buffalo in upstate New York, and after I graduated, he let me be his assistant for a year or 2 while I was doing theater around Buffalo. And I was still auditioning and trying to get roles, but it just wasn't going that way. But I was getting a lot of work being his assistant, and then eventually he started handing me some roles. And I got sort of a great opportunity to go to Colorado and work for a very old opera company here in the U.S. called Central City Opera. And if I'm right, it's the oldest or one of the oldest opera houses in the U.S., and it's got a fascinating story to it, and I wound up going out there to do a production of West Side Story, and I was cast in the show as Riff's understudy in one of the jets, and when I got out there, they asked me if I wanted to choreograph it, and that was my first time really choreographing a big production on my own, and I, of course, said yes, and they paid me $100 to choreograph the show. My first big boy check. I was very excited about it for being a fight director, and the next year, they invited me back to teach for the Young Artist Program, and I was only a few years out of college, but I had made a good impression with the company, and I thought to myself, much like Maestro Conlon, well, I'll just be in opera for a little bit, and then I'll go back to musical theater and acting and really get that going. And I went back to New York after Central City and didn't book any jobs, and I went back to Central City and did the summer and had a great time choreographing, and then I went back to New York and didn't book any jobs. And then I went back to Central City. And so I was there for about 8 years, and then moved to Boston to get the opportunity to teach at Boston University and the New England Conservatory. And I was teaching in their opera program, stage combat, acting, and audition techniques. And I really sort of thought that education was going to be where I was. And I really, really enjoyed teaching in the classroom, working with undergraduates as well as master's students and students of the OI and the OT at BU. And working for Boston Lyric Opera. And I got the opportunity from a friend of a friend to go out to Santa Barbara and work for Music Academy of the West for a production out there. And that's where I met a number of LAO staff members who were there for the summertime. And after COVID, there was an opportunity to come do a production. They needed a fight director, and I was available and had a clean bill of health. And so I got brought out to do that show. And that was Trovatore in 2021, Maestro? 2021? We'll go with that. And luckily, I've been here at LAO since then. And I just recently left LA. I now live in West Palm Beach, Florida, and I still come back to LA to work for the opera company because it is a fantastic place to come work and to do opera and to meet great artists.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Andy. I'm hearing another theme here is that it's okay when you're in your early stages to pivot and to find a different direction or to change a direction and change a focus and find a new path if you're suddenly realizing that I'm not into this major or this isn't my thing or I'm not. It's okay. And we love having confidence to move boldly into our futures, guys. Maestro, what is it like? You've been here with us in LA for a few years, but what is it like? What's your experience as an artist who's, let's say, more seasoned? What is your experience like now as you're coming to the next step? You'll be, I guess, conductor laureate for us in the coming future, but you have many things yet to come. What is it like for you in the pit right now doing a Rigoletto? What do you have a number for this show? Do you know approximately how many of these you've done?
First of all, I think seasoned means old, and that's fine. I wear my age proudly. I have, don't put us all away into the attic.
No,
some of us
not
are
at
not
all.
ready at all. You know what? I don't know exactly. I will look it up, though, I promise you. I don't know exactly how many performances of Rigoletto I've conducted. Probably between 30 and 40, I'm not sure. But I've conducted over 500 performances of Verdi operas in my 535. I like to count now. That's one of the things you do, and you get old and start saying, hey, look at what I've done.
The statistics, yeah.
Yeah, statistics. But I saw Rigoletto, so I asked who's 13? Anybody 12 here? Nobody. Oh, great. Okay. I was 12 when I saw Rigoletto the first time, and I fell in love with that too. And so it goes. I've lived with it all of my life, and I probably conducted my first one in my 20s. And doesn't matter how many times you conduct some of these operas, if they're great operas, and this one certainly is, you go back to it and you find new things all the time. But you don't even have to find new things. Just redoing old things is also great. It's really one of the great operas, and I hope that you're going to enjoy it. And if you do enjoy it, come back again, because classical music has a peculiar quality of your hearing more and feeling more. And it's all about your feelings. Just hearing it and feeling it. You don't have to know anything. It's not an intellectual process. You don't have to be educated in music. You don't have, if you are, great. If you're not, that's even better. It's all about what you hear and how what you hear makes you feel. So I always say, come back again if you like it, because you'll like it even more the second time. And if you don't like it the first time, come back again anyway, because you may get it in a certain way that you didn't get it the first time. And one of the nice things that I experience all the time, because of course I know these operas from beginning to end, I'll enjoy seeing how, knowing the end, how the composer built the entire piece like a puzzle, and how it goes from here to there, looking that way from there to here. That's fascinating too. And I think the theater is never the same twice, as you know, so that you're always going to feel things each time. It's about those feelings. That's the important thing. And most of all, if you feel inhibited, if you feel uncomfortable, I've never been here, my friends think I'm silly. I can tell you, when I told my friends that I had just fallen in love with Rigoletto, they said, who's she? Yeah. And they said, well, this guy, he likes opera. He likes opera. You know what opera is? They said they all scream and they thought, was I a nerd? Yes, I was the king of the nerds. And did people make fun of me? Yeah, they did. I used to carry a violin. They said, violin, what is that? Why don't you carry a guitar? I said, I don't play the guitar. They said, well, what is that thing? I said, well, it's like a guitar. It has strings and you play it. But so don't worry if you feel yourself surrounded by people who don't appreciate it, let them go. They don't matter. What matters is your direct relationship to what you're hearing and and there's nothing to know. Just come and enjoy. Come and feel. That's it.
Hear, hear. I always say, find your tribe. Well, that's right, Maestro. If you're not around people who support you, let them go. That's all right. Jessica, Jess, sorry. It's interesting thinking about this production. It's originally set, I think, Maestro, in the 16th century. Is that right? Somewhere in there?
I'm having a little trouble working out what I mean. This is a mixture.
This is,
Yeah,
and now we've updated
the
to
original story goes way back. I can tell you about that later if you want. But this production, what would you say?
Costume-wise?
There's a gun there.
Yeah, there is a gun there. So
Right,
we're
right. So
leaning
we're a
a
little
bit
more modern.
Kind of like 30s, embracing some of the 30s. But
Everybody's wearing formal wear. That's another thing.
yeah. So it's like a little, mostly leaning 30s, but we've kind of borrowed from a different periods throughout time.
And for you, this is a piece that you're coming into as it's traveled around, it's been other places. What is it like for you coming into a piece that has already been designed and you're sort of coming in to work on? What is that like? What is that process for you? How does that differ from designing a whole show and doing everything?
So this process is different just because normally when I do work on a show, I'm with it from the first like design conversations and meetings to the full execution of the show. So when I joined Rigoletto, the show had already been done once in Houston Grand Opera. And so my job is to basically come in instead of Jessica John, to facilitate that the show was executed the way it was in Houston Grand Opera, while also Tomer, our director, we're doing the same opera, but we're coming in with new perspective, new ideas, and so how do we adapt those new ideas and new ways into this performance while still maintaining the integrity of the design that Jessica wanted? So there's a lot of different factors of what Tomer would like to change, if Jessica would like to change anything. There's also conversations with our actors, our supers. So a lot of different variables that could change the process. And so we get something called a show Bible, which is basically a really thick binder just of photos of every single character, every single accessory, every single fabric swatch. And I follow that to make sure everything pretty much looks exactly the same as it was done before. And then as we go into tech rehearsals, we observe how our actors move in the costumes, what needs they meet, and as we all go on this journey and learn this new production and what we would like to do differently together, we adapt to it.
Thank you. It's interesting to hear that. I love to ask the tech questions because there's a huge amount of specificity that goes into something like this. For just one production, we're talking about all the different artists that have their hands on this production and how everyone has a job to play, and particularly paying attention to details like that, so that when you see it on stage, it's hopefully as natural and believable as watching anything else you'd see on TV or on the screen and anywhere else you'd experience theater. Andy, it's an interesting thing to think about your role in this production and what sorts of things you've had to work with and do in this production without giving away any plot or too much of the plot. Can you tell us sort of how your job as fight and intimacy coordinator, how that has worked into this production, and specifically any of the things that you've had interesting or challenging, or just sort of what your experience has been like working in this particular production?
Yeah, it's an opera, so somebody dies, right?
That's a thing.
Fairly standard practice for most of us who've seen more than one opera. Sort of similar to what Jess was saying is that you're always working with new people, right? And every new person has a new set of ideas for how they want that character to be, how they want that action to be, and how they want that intimacy to be. And also everybody has their own sets of abilities, capabilities, willingness, and boundaries. And so regardless of the production, whether it's this or West Side or any other opera, you're working within the confines and the capabilities of what the artists are bringing for you. For this one, you'll notice very early that Quinn, who plays Rigoletto, is very tall. And Lisette, who plays Gilda, is not. And so something that we look for when we're working with actors is what is their physical size and how do they match up with each other, and how do we make those moments look right? They have a very loving father-daughter relationship, and how do we make that work when somebody is towering over somebody else, especially when they need to be facing maestro so they can find their cues, so they can be finding their light. And then we have another situation with another character and another huge height disparity, and they have some action between the two of themselves. And we have to be able to make that physicality read naturally amongst them while they're doing their more action-y based things. So you have to start with conversations about what people's abilities are, what their capabilities are, and what their willingness inside of those is to be. Regardless of whether it's violence or intimacy, you're really sort of starting with finding out what somebody is excited about, because most people know what they're signing up for with whatever show they're doing. If it's Carmen, whoever's singing Carmen is excited about the action that they get to do. With Rigoletto, there is awareness for Faatoalia and for Rigoletto about what they're going to be doing. So we start with what they've done in the past in their previous productions, if they've done the show before. We also need to work with the director about the images that they want. So it's a little bit across the board, but we do have some height disparity in this one that makes for an interesting challenge, because one relationship where there's a large height disparity, we need it to feel intimate and loving and careful. And then another one that has a height disparity, we need to make it feel scary and intense, but not overpowering and overbearing. So we have to be able to find space for everybody to feel strong and grounded while they're coming up against one another. We try really hard to make sure as we're doing this, whether it's intimacy or violence, while we're collaborating with the performers as well as the director, that everybody has their moments, right? We can't have a scene of violence or intimacy where one person is overly dominant all the time, because that's a one-sided story and that's not interesting. We need to see the physical conversation between the two parties in the same way that we hear the recit or hear the arias from both characters. It's like lines of dialogue in a play. It's only interesting if both people have something interesting to say. If not, then you're watching a monologue and someone else just standing there waiting for something to happen. So it's been fun to deal with that. A few of these people have done this exact production before, and while costumes is recreated exactly, the movement changes every time there's a different fight director, so my action and intimacy choreography is different than what was done in Houston or what was done at any of the other houses, and that is a great thing for freshness, for the directing staff, for the music staff, for the performers as well, that something is brand new. Even if it's the same singers side by side and face to face, they are doing brand new action and intimacy together.
Again, the specificity that goes into this, just to make something seem very simple and believable as a fight or an argument or an interaction, but we take every precaution and step to be safe and to be respectful of each other as performers on the stage. It is an amazing piece of music, and you're going to hear things that you recognize. If you've done any research or done any looking at things beforehand, you've already probably heard some tunes that you've probably heard, and a few cartoons or commercials, and you certainly will recognize other tunes that you maybe didn't even realize, oh, that's an opera, that's an aria, I didn't know that. Maestro is more than just an expert in music. He is a lover of music, as you can hear. So I'm curious to know, from your musical brain, what can you tell us specifically about Verdi's music and this score that maybe is different from what sets it apart from his other earlier works? And what is there anything in specific that we can listen for tonight, or that you might want to highlight with the orchestra for the young people listening?
Sure. How about, I'm going to guess that some of you at least know a little bit about the story. Is that right? Or you know nothing? Well, that's going to be very exciting. You're going to discover it in front of you. But may I say a few words about that?
Please.
Yeah. Verdi lived a very long life, and he wrote 26 operas in the course of that life. Now, if you're living from 1813 to 1901, you will have experienced incredible changes in the world, in society, in history, in the Industrial Revolution. And Verdi, unlike a lot of other people, grew with that as he went, and he expanded all of his life, and so that his later operas, written in his 70s and even at 80 years old, are his greatest operas. This opera is right in the middle, almost, and it is considered one of the middle period masterpieces. And one of the things that characterize these operas, Rigoletto is the name of the court jester, who is the central character, is Verdi's great sympathy with humanity, and especially people who were rejected in their society. And he was also almost shocking in that regard. This story came from a French author whose name was Victor Hugo. You may have heard the names or know the stories of the Hunchback of Notre Dame. You may know Les Mis or Les Miserables. These are great works by Victor Hugo. And he wrote another play called The King Amuses Himself, Le Roi s'amuse in French. And that king is a famous historic king named Francis I, François Ier, who was a handsome man, and he was a rather corrupt, profligate individual who took advantages. He was very narcissistic, had a lot of power, and as Mel Brooks said, it's good to be king. He could do whatever he wanted, and he especially had that attitude in his relationships with women. And so we're going to see a story of a man who does that every day of his life. We are going to see somebody who is going to contest that and who is going to be angry at him about it. And we're also, unfortunately, the tragedy we are going to see is that the king will prevail in the end and the little people will not. That's what makes it a tragedy. Now, if it turned out the other way, we would have a different experience. But that is the nature of this tragedy. Now, Verdi was not allowed to put the story of a king of France on the stage because there was censorship. Now, in theory, we don't have censorship in our country, but in practice, we see a lot of it coming back. So we have to put ourselves in those times, and the authorities did not like the idea that a king who misbehaved, basically, would be put on the stage. Also, there is an attempt to punish that king and to kill him, assassinate him, at the hands of a paid assassin. They didn't like that either. And so the king became a duke in a smaller city in Italy, and some of it was watered down a little bit. But Verdi did not really change the essence of the work. And the most important part is that the protagonist, the central figure, who he called Rigoletto, was not a little girl, it was Rigoletto, was a court jester. Those were people whose jobs were to make everybody laugh at court, and they served at the pleasure of the king or the duke, or whoever it was. And he had a physical handicap. He had a hunchback. And so people who had hunchbacks, and we don't like to use that word today, but people used to mistreat people with any kind of physical deformity, and they still do today. And that's wrong. That's a moral wrong. And Verdi saw it that way, and Verdi found this story about this man who had this physical deformity and make him the central figure and to give him the moral message to deliver to the audience. We love this man, not because he's perfect, he is not, but because he loves his daughter. And we see this beautiful relationship with his daughter, and that's going to be the real drama in this. And of course, well, Andy said somebody always dies at the end. Yeah, in 19th century Italian opera, there's two. It's either a funny opera, we call it opera buffa, or it's a serious opera, melodrama. And if it's a melodrama, yes, somebody dies, and it's usually the woman who's the soprano, who's the highest voice. But believe it or not, in the previous century, in the 18th century, nobody ever portrayed death on the stage. So it's all a question of fashion. It went into fashion, and it's there today. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. You go to a movie, does somebody die? Maybe somebody doesn't die. It's not so important. But for the Italian opera, it was pretty standard. So that's going to make us. It's going to move us at the end. You may feel like crying, and that's fine. But that's not the essential point. Not everything has to be happy all the time. Not every theater piece has to be happy. Sometimes it makes us feel very deep feelings. And that's what Rigoletto the person does, and that's what Rigoletto the opera does.
Thank you so much, Maestro. We love to hear that background, and it gets us ready to think about these themes. There are some sort of overarching themes of power and abuse and of vengeance and then tragedy and love that's innocent and is twisted, and it's a lot of things that we see in real life, and it is interesting to hear that the censors even then, I guess that's a constant in our world as well, but our artists have always had the voices and the power and the strength to continue to strive to get messages out like that, and to tell the stories and to be truthful and keep it real, as we say, keep it 100 with the people. It's interesting thinking about you guys here today and what's about to happen on stage, and we've had this lovely discussion, but these are regular folks too. They're artists who have regular lives. What's it like a regular day for you guys? Andy, what's it like getting up and getting ready? Do you do anything specific to prepare when you're working on a show, or once it's opened, or is it just like an average day for anyone else? Do you have any? I know you probably have like fight calls and things you probably have to attend.
Yeah, an average day. This sounds like a hashtag humble brag, but there's always a weapon to practice. There's always a workout to go do. So much of my job is physical, and to keep people safe, it's really important. If you're ever working with a fight director or a stunt coordinator or a professional stunt performer, they should be doing the stunt first or the action first, whether it's violence or action or intimacy. And so that means that I'm doing a lot, and I'm doing it multiple times for each performer to make sure that they are seeing it and okay with it and approving of it, and then safe with it. So every day starts with, walk my dog, a run, some working out, and then practicing some sort of weapon work. Sometimes that's mental practice, choreographing alone. Sometimes when I'm out here, I don't have to choreograph or practice alone. There's a number of supers and stunt performers out here, but in South Florida, that's in short supply. So out there, I'm usually choreographing by myself in my apartment and trying to do both sides of a sword fight together. So I'm sorry for my neighbors who are looking in, seeing that. That looks real weird. But otherwise, the great thing about art is that everything is research. Reading a great book, listening to great music, seeing a movie, TV, going to a museum and seeing great art. The production we just did of Romeo and Juliet, the violence and the intimacy for that, Sarah Widzer did the intimacy for that, and she and I had a long conversation about the physical storytelling that we wanted to do, and a lot of that was inspired by a few different paintings and books that we had seen and read because of the way they described it inside of there. So that really makes it so that anything you're doing throughout the day can be great research and a great way to expand your mind as an artist. It sounds a little ethereal and hoity-toity, but it really is a great way to ping something back. There's an image in this show that I sort of built for two artists because it reminds me of something I saw in a movie years ago that I will go, yeah, when I see it, and nobody else cares about. But I think that's what's great about doing what we do, is that there's specialty training for whatever job you have to do, and there's skills-based training for whatever job that you have to do, whether you're an accountant, a seamstress, a fight director. And then there are those things that, the intangibles that come together to work for whatever your job is. So yeah, I walk the dog, I hit the gym, and then I play with some weapons, and then I try to just consume something that will be exciting and enlivening that I can maybe steal from later.
Nice. It's interesting. It's great when you can have fun at what you do like that. That's what the goal is in life, is to do what you love and love what you do. And it is important to think about safety on stage and all things, and especially when we're actually active and trying to portray a physicalize a fight or a movement like that. So we definitely need all of our technicians on hand. So I'm going to bounce that question back. Jess, what's it like? What's an average day like for you getting ready for showtime, or before that, getting ready to get yourself in the space to do what you do? What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, on my normal day-to-day, say if it's a day where we have like fittings or it's our first day of everyone in costume, I usually will look through fitting photos, and we do a lot of paperwork. We make things called a piece list, where we list out every single piece of clothing an actor has for what costume, for what scene, and familiarize myself with that. I am a big Pinterest person, so I have just daily pins that I take in every day. I love to people watch, so I kind of take in just people that I see on the street. Sometimes I'll see something that morning and it'll be the perfect thing for an accessory or just one more piece that I'm missing from adding onto somebody's look to perfect it. So similarly to what you were saying about finding inspiration just everywhere. I listen to music. I love music, hence why I have enjoyed my time working in opera. And I associate characters with songs. So even if I'm working in theater or opera, just in the vibe of the character and their costume design, I associate with a specific song or a specific genre that'll help me get into tune with this person and this character.
I love it. I recently saw a clip of you, Maestro, in an interview, and you were talking about your preparation for conducting and removing ego from the process and putting yourself aside to let the music sort of be you can be a conduit for the music. And I respect that so much because that's something that as an artist you're always trying to do. I'm always trying to, but I always want to put my 2 cents into things or to influence music. But it's something that comes with musical maturity, right? To be able to come to a score and to approach it as honest and truly as you can for the composer and for the sake of the music. What's your preparation process? Like, do you have a process that you've gotten used to, a routine, or is it sort of different day to day for you before a show, before conducting?
Well, I think you bring up a very important part. One of the things we do as recreative artists, we don't create, or at least I don't view it that way. I don't compose, I don't write words, I execute what somebody else wrote. And so it seems to me the big issue as a orientation, philosophic, moral orientation toward the work is the work there for me, or am I there for the work? And I don't think this only has to do with what you say is maturity. I think this is an attitude that you do make those choices very early. And I think that even at your age, if you are somehow involved in any form of art, you need to decide, well, is this art of value independent of myself, or is it only because I'm doing it that it's of importance? Now, I made that choice very young. 18, 19, 20, I don't know how young I was, but my attitude is I want to know what the music is all about. I want to know what the composer was all about. I want to know what this work means, and I want to communicate what that meant to the composer. There are other people, it's a legitimate attitude. I don't agree with it at all, but someone looks at the work and says, well, let's see, how can I make this serve me? For instance, I'm a violinist, here's a piece. This is a great piece for me to play because I can show off how good I am. I'm a pianist. Let me play this piece because this way I can demonstrate my abilities. And singers, you've worked with them, you know, some of them are the same way. You know, let me show off my voice. Now, some of that's very natural and understandable, but that's one viewpoint. I have another viewpoint. My other viewpoint is that if nature gave you a great voice, it was made to make beautiful music. You're lucky if you're going to enjoy your life along with it, but it's really there for a higher purpose. And it's the same for playing the violin, playing the piano, and it's the same for conducting. If I am able to conduct, my job, I believe, is to serve the music that I'm composing, that I'm conducting for the composer. And when you said ego, and to remove my ego, that doesn't mean I don't have an ego. I do. But it means that I don't put my ego in between myself and the music, and that I get out of the way of the music so that the music can speak directly to you. You're listening to it. You're the audience, and it can speak directly to the musicians with whom I play in the orchestra, the singers on the stage, the chorus, the soloist. So that is my philosophy. Not everybody agrees with my philosophy, but I'd like to, I have lived that philosophy. And I found in the end it's a meaningful way for me to spend my life, and I suspect more meaningful than I would have had if I was just always concentrating on myself and, well, what does this do for me? In other words, doing something for somebody else or something for something else, something maybe larger than you, is a more rewarding type of life. That's my philosophy.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And with that, we're going to wrap up and say thank you to our panelists, Maestro Conlon, and to Jess, and to Andy. Thank you guys so much for being with us. And thank you all. And enjoy Rigoletto.